So yeah, one question we recently in the last 2-3 months we frequently get is AI versus the dot-com boom, especially with Michael Burry, who was the one who correctly called the 2008 financial crisis. He came up with a big shot on a lot of AI names. There was a frenzy of questions around this. So we took some time to understand what's going on in the AI world and how we can compare it to the dot-com boom. So in the chart over there, you see what happened in the early 2000s with the dot-com bubble. There was a bubble in fiber optics. A massive amounts of fiber optic capacity was being built by the likes of Level 3, WorldCom. All these guys were building massive amounts of fiber optic capacity, expecting that the internet usage will grow at the same rate and will be able to utilize that fiber optics. That is not the case right now. Right now, we are behind the curve. So in the dot-com bubble, the demand was not there and the utilization rates were at about 7% for the fiber optics that were being built. Currently, the utilization rate of NVIDIA GPUs is at about 80% or more. So if you actually want to use an NVIDIA GPU, unless you are associated with a large company, it's not easy to get access to an NVIDIA GPU. You will be told that please come back after 2 months. So that doesn't indicate a bubble, because for a bubble to happen, you should have lower utilization levels, whereas right now utilization levels are north of 80%. And please remember, these are 24/7 utilization levels. So if the GPU is not being used at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night, that still counts as not being utilized, right? So that 80% is pretty much the maximum you could go. There could never be a 100% utilization level because they all have downtimes. They all go through the typical day and night cycle. So I think 80% utilization is pretty much 100% usage that you can get out of those GPUs. Another thing is the physical layer in the dot-com boom moved faster than the software layer, where software proliferation of internet applications was slow and the physical layer was not being utilized. Right now, that is not the case. It is the exact reverse, where the software layer is moving faster than the physical layer because of the various LLMs being developed, the various databases being used to modify enterprise software, to use enterprise software more effectively. I think the software layer is moving at a much faster pace than the underlying physical layer, which is where we have a constraint right now, that not enough GPUs available to support the software changes. So the main difference between the AI boom versus the dot-com boom, right now we have excess demand and no supply, versus in the dot-com boom there was excess supply and no demand. So that is the main reason why we feel that as of now we are not anywhere close to the dot-com boom. So we should not be too worried about this discussion that's going on about the AI bubble around the capex, etc. Moving on to the next slide. So yes, certainly there are capex requirements and those are being implemented. But as Sunil earlier mentioned in his discussion also, this capex is being funded by cash-rich companies. And so those $100 billion, $200 billion capex cash on the balance sheet that you saw, that's not just a stagnant amount. They add another 60, 70 billion every year to that amount, right? So it's not that it's a one and done deal. These companies are cash generating machines. They are generating cash for somebody like a Google at the rate of $75 billion per year. Others may be in the range or slightly lower, but these are all cash generating machines. So every year goes by, you move into another year and another $70 billion comes up in their balance sheet. So that's why we are not too worried about the capex that they are doing. Now, there is a report from Morgan Stanley which says that outside of that cash, you still need $1.5 trillion of new public and private financing is required. Now, the reason we are not worried about that new public and private financing is it will be funded primarily because the returns on those capex investments are phenomenal. If you see Microsoft Azure, which is the AI part of Microsoft business, their EBIT margins are 43%. if you're getting 43% EBIT margins in a business, funding will not be a problem. To compare, a lot of times we see in India, especially L&D doing very well when a major project is announced. L&D's EBITDA margins are in the 5% range or even lower, right? So if a company with a 5% lower, 5% or lower EBIT margins, is expected to do well when they announce a large project with a lot of capex, you can imagine how good it is for a company with 43% EBIT margins. So we should not be worried about the capex spend at Microsoft or Google or any of these companies, because the margins over there are phenomenal. I would not be too worried about that. In fact, with this type of EBIT margins, you should be okay with more capex, because that will generate more revenues and more returns. So then the next point we get is that, okay, fair, capex, you can do it. There are good returns on that. What about valuation? Is it in a bubble? Right. So let's take the most well-known case of AI valuations, which people talk about, is NVIDIA. NVIDIA trades at 20 times CY27 P multiple. And the reason I'm talking about CY27 is we are already in December in 25. So come Jan of 26, forward 12-month multiple will be what is the expected earnings in CY27. So we are fairly close to using CY27 as a valuation, forward 12-month valuation multiple. And that's why 20x for a CY27 P multiple is nowhere close to a bubble. For bubble, you need to be 80, 90, 100 and above. Now, does that mean that all of them are this cheap? No, all of them are not. Some of them, for example, Palantir trades at more than 100 times sales, forget earnings, right? So there is a wide variety of stocks within AI where valuations are high, mid to low. So it's not that in general, all the AI stocks are either cheap or are fairly valued or are expensive. There are different categories. And so AI is not one sector in itself. There is AI, you can say, you can divide into physical, compute layer, you can divide it into semiconductor and compute, semiconductor memory, semiconductor networking. Then you have the enterprise software, you have database software, you have databases, you have consumer software. So all these are different subsectors within AI, and they are all trading at different valuation multiples. So just broadly painting a brush and saying that the entire AI sector is overvalued, I think that does not seem fair. And that's where you make money, where you are aware of those facts and understand which parts are expensive and which parts are reasonably valued and which parts are cheaper to go ahead and make those changes. So we do feel that, yes, AI overall is not in a valuation bubble, and only maybe 20 stocks out of the 100 stocks or 200 stocks in AI, they could be on the expensive side, but the others are fairly valued to lower valuation. And you don't have to take our word for it. Berkshire Hathaway bought 4.9 billion worth of Google shares, and Google is one of the largest AI beneficiaries, as you can see from the chart on the right-hand side. So, and Berkshire Hathaway is a well-known value buyer, right? I don't need to talk more about Berkshire Hathaway. So and they just bought it in the last 2-3 months. So if they are willing to buy Google shares at the current valuations, which means that it is a value play. It is definitely not expensive. It is nowhere close to a bubble territory. So if you think one of the largest companies in the AI sector, Google, is not in the bubble territory, and with the stamp of approval you get from Berkshire Hathaway, there is no reason to believe similarly valued companies in the same sector with similar or higher growth are anywhere close to bubble territory. Right? So we do feel maybe few companies are expensive, but the rest of them are not. So